episode 13.
Is this real? Not real.
Is this or not real? So we're continuing on with the episodic compendium, but as well we're continuing on in real life with the coronavirus. And last week we made mention of it. This week things seem to be, I guess, incrementally getting a little bit worse. Everybody's going on a potential lockdown. I think they should just lock everything down for 2 weeks. They keep inching towards that. But I think they're afraid of telling every citizen to stay in regardless. And but that's an effect.
I don't think you need to do that. It's a hoax. I think you're just... it's the Democrats who hate Trump.
Yeah, everybody's screwing Trump up. I can't believe how we're giving the guy such a hard run.
Stupid.
Yeah, they should just let him just fix everything right now.
So we were just talking about that thing on Netflix that is on called Tigers. And,
called Tiger King.
Tiger King.
I wonder if it's a play on Lion King.
So this is the 13th episode, full of glitches, etc.
Yeah, we just started it, and now we had to restart it because for some reason the camera wasn't recording. It was, and then it stopped. So
stupid camera.
We'll just pick it up again.
So you were talking about the
Tiger King, yeah, it's on Netflix. It seems to be a phenomena sweeping the continent in these times of coronavirus where everybody's locked in. It's about, I think it's like 7 one-hour episodes or so. And it's compelling, it's astounding, it's infuriating, it's funny, it's shocking.
But what do you think of it? Anyways, but what were you saying to me before you turned the camera on about, it was specifically about these individuals, these who had sort of these strident characteristics to themselves. Yes,
what's funny was I was telling Byron, he hasn't seen it yet, and Kristen and I have watched the full show. And funny enough, we're tying it into The Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey, which was inspired by Byron's love of all things freakish, weird human oddities, like just the old circus sideshow, which was, compounded by watching Todd Browning's Freaks. And I was relating Tiger King to being a modern-day freak movie. Not Gabba Gabba Hey and all that kind of stuff.
You were describing one of the... 46, 47.
Oh my God. Technical glitches abound.
On the 13th episode. Well, maybe what we should be doing is calling it the 14th episode. Maybe it'll work then.
I should have something I can throw at the camera. I fucking hate tech sometimes. That's all I do every day is fucking tech, and it drives you fucking nuts. Sorry.
No, it does, and I think I've riffed on this before, and it is so important. Like we had just gotten sort of rolling on this episode, and we were just sort of going down this garden path about a certain subject, and so the camera glitched, and there's nothing frustrating that when you're sort of doing your performance and having technology get in the way. My studio at home, I consistently am, and sometimes I get the same thing. Once you get an idea or you want to have a performance or record, there is nothing more debilitating to you when technology interferes with your ability to record, or the play button just doesn't engage for some sort of stupid reason, and you miss a performance, and then you just get frustrated because technologies can certainly get in the way of a good performance, and I've certainly been down that road before, where you want to throw things out the window, but unfortunately there's a lot of this technology.
I got some coronavirus.
Yes.
Sorry.
You should be sneezing in my direction then.
Luckily, I don't see anybody ever, so I don't think I have anything. I hope, unless my dog has.
Okay, so we were talking about the tiger guys.
Tiger King.
And you specifically were mentioning one guy in particular.
Joe Exotic.
And you just sort of said he was sort of very strident in his appearance. Everything about him was very.
It's one of those stories where like everything you learn about all these people, you just figure that they always profess, their utmost love and caring about the time. They're just in it for the money. Each person was worse than the next, but it's funny when you take them all into a bouillabaisse and you swear. This Joe Exotic guy, even though he's crazy beyond belief, I think he's still the most likable of them all. The character. So it's funny how when you're given a set of choices, even if everyone's terrible, you look at the one that's the least terrible and go, "Now I can deal with that." Because
Yeah, it's humans are. You had mentioned another word when you were trying to explain it to me earlier today, that they were sort of freaks.
Right, we were talking about freaks in nature, Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey. This was an updated Freaks of Nature, basically.
Yeah, people searching for their own identities, their sense of purpose on this planet that we're allowed for this very sort of short amount of time. And I remember you just sort of saying that a couple hours ago. So I remember sort of walking downstairs, sort of laughing, but I sort of have to catch myself. So today, before I'd seen you, I had told you that I'm going through all these boxes of stuff that I have in a storage locker, and I got plenty of boxes of stuff, all stuff of the music I had done over the years and stuff like that. And I'm trying to find some stuff that's relevant to this album that we're talking about right now, The Alien, the Rabbit, and Monkey. So it turns out that I've got tons of boxes of, I got stacks of lyrics. I've got lyrics written on every type of paper, piece of cardboard, menus, and it's just this gobbledygook of stuff that I have boxes of. I don't know why I collected them all. It's hard for me to sort of go through them and look at some of the lyrics and think of like where this song came from. But obviously, I'm spending my days writing down lyrics and just sort of saving them in my pocket and stuff like that. So I was going through this stuff and just talking about freaks and stuff like that. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of lyrics. And I started thinking about my time at the studio when I was doing this album. And one of the things about technology that I was really learning was John in the studio had a really good sound module. It was made by Roland, and I wish I knew the number, but it had a ton of patches, and specifically it had an orchestral set of patches, specifically a lot of good string sections and stuff like that. So it would be cellos, you get different types of cellos, you get different bowing patterns and stuff like that. And I would spend a lot of my time, so this is talking about like a freak myself. Somebody gave me the keys to the studio. John, thank you, John. Somebody gave me the keys to the studio. Don't give the keys to the studio to Freak Boy, because I was in there all the time, especially I'd go there on the weekends at 4 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that. But a lot of the times, and I'm thinking about my time at the studio, but a lot of my time was not spent working on my album. A lot of my time was coming in and making these orchestral things on keyboard, on these MIDI arrangements with this beautiful sound module he had. I really got into a lot more piano stuff. And I think about all the, and I found in one of the boxes today, I found a box of, so there's a whole pile of floppy disks, and there's some CDs that have all my MIDI stuff written on them. And I think I did all this other music in the studio that it's just sort of disappeared. But I just remember spending a lot of time in the studio, indulging myself with other music while I'm sort of working on this album. And I remember sometimes John would come in and I would sort of put these songs away and stuff like that. And it was a Roland.
Yeah, I've called up some Roland sound modules from the mid-90s.
What's the thing on the
this thing here?
What is that?
JV 1080.
Was that it?
Well, I'm not sure
Maybe.
because at the time I wasn't there, but it sounds like something you guys might have.
Yeah. That's it.
Super JV.
Right, and it had a couple of cars, and one
Expansion
of them was
kits, yeah.
and it had an expansion kit with the.
I'll put the picture up for everybody.
with the string section. So I would indulge with it. I would make songs up, and I would make enormous orchestral arrangements on the computer MIDI, and I
Not having to do with any song you're working
not having
on?
to do with any song. And sometimes there'd be a guy that would come in. He was a maestro in Ottawa for some a group of singers. I'm skipping the name of.
Oh,
what is
that
it?
was Iwan Herrera?
Well, not him, but it would be somebody else, and and I'd play them all these big orchestra things that I'd have all brass instruments, but it was a lot of string stuff, and it was beautiful string section stuff like that. So there's just a ton of music that was, and I think about it now, and I think like
So you would do little standalone things, push them aside.
all the time, and I think about all the music that I had done with all this stuff, but. I think, like, what was the purpose of that sort of exercise? Like, what a freak show!
Well, it's interesting because you do produce full, comprehensive pieces when someone like myself, I'm always adding parts to people's songs for them in the studio, and also I always do those little things where I create a little strings, a 12-bar string section and put it aside because I never know when I'm going to use it. And I'll just transpose it to whatever, change the tempo.
Yeah.
And I go, I can use that for something. I suppose for you, you're packing stuff away like a squirrel packing away his nuts.
Don't know. I know that there's CDs that I was looking when I was going through the box. There's CDs of just piano compositions, and I know exactly what it was. It was me playing on the MIDI piano, and I would just have a drum beat, and I'd play for 3 minutes. And then I would go back and just sort of pick out the parts that sort of made musical sense to me, and I start stringing them together in these little compositions and stuff like that. And yeah, so the time I spent in that studio, 4 years, 5 years, and stuff like that. We're talking about freaks and stuff like that. Yeah, I would constantly go in. I don't understand the purpose of why I was doing that at the time, especially when I was given the keys to such a wonderful sort of musical emporium and stuff like that.
Well, in a sense, I think John was acting as the neighborhood drug dealer.
He was, absolutely.
He knew that you were wanting more and more all the time, and
it was crazy.
He was more than happy to indulge because don't forget, studios always rented out their time off hours for less money to bands and whatever because they would be happy to come in because it's not like, oh, he used our sound module, we only have so many more times we can use that sound. I mean, you know what, so he was indulging you, and thanks that he did, because you needed to get through that. I think you needed to get through the heroin musical addiction.
Yeah, so it was wonderful, and so I'm only mentioning that because I have been going through boxes looking for stuff, and that's some of the stuff I found. It reminded me.
Everybody. Byron's telling me that he's also kept a diary for almost
that's one of the things I'm trying to find. So
that will be gold, baby.
So I had a book, and actually it has a picture of the Freak of Nature movie on the front of the book, and so when you're in the studio with somebody else, so John spent a lot of time at the board. I would record stuff or put stuff together, and then we would sort of change places. He would go to the board and start screwing around or massaging the sound of the audio that I gave him. So he would start doing that. So you're basically looking at the back of John's head for an hour or two. You've had that experience and stuff like that?
I consider that, not looking back at John's head, but any engineer's head in a studio, when you're done the fun part, and you're into editing and massaging, unless I'm doing it, I don't want to be anywhere near the studio.
Yeah, it was just sort of part. So that was part of sort of the shtick, right? So I'm also sort of John's sort of minion at some point. So that was part of the sort of twofold. So instead of just staring at the back of his head for 2 hours, I would just sort of write down what we had been doing and stuff like that. So there was some purpose. I know there's a book lying around somewhere amongst the box stuff. So when I do find it, it will be worth something.
Absolutely. I'm desperate to read it.
Yeah.
It's tough because when you're exposing yourself, which is totally alien alien to Byron, in that he usually keeps very private, which is why nobody's heard this music to date. It's a lot for him to say, okay, we'll do that. But I have encouraged him to say, look, in 30 years, we probably won't be here. So what the hell?
Oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And even today to talk about it, so I'm always doing music now and stuff like that. It's been an interesting experience for me to go over this and how it relates to what I'm doing now, and sort of when I'm doing music today. This week I was working on a song, and I was just thinking about all the stuff that we've talked about over the last couple months and stuff like that, and how that's just sort of making me maybe see things differently and stuff like that. I certainly have a lot more confidence with my lyrics, though I really enjoy that part, stuff like that. So I'm interested in hearing another song from the Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey. So I haven't heard this album in 25 years, and I don't think I really remember listening to a lot of it at the end of the album. It was sort of tough to sort of put a finish on this, and just sort of the politics of the whole studio thing at the time, which we'll get into, I guess, toward the end. So I hadn't really heard it much, and so this is like one of those reaction videos I keep seeing.
Reacting to your own.
Yeah, I'm reacting, and to this day I pull stuff up out of my hard drive of songs that I can't remember doing. And so it's kind of a thrill to hear things that I don't remember doing. And that you did them yourself, for good or for worse. Holy
well,
Louise.
It is interesting at this point to have some perspective, because back in the day, when he had just left my studio and went into John's place, you were a different bundle of bones and blood, and you had a different, you were wrapped up a little more tight,
Probably.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice to see now you're just letting it down and saying, this is what I remember. This is the beautiful thing I think I like to see from all artists, as to them commenting on their, not just their musical, but their personal development as you went through life, right? And then you get to a certain point, young people, that you are very okay with who you are and where you are and what you've done and what you are doing. You're so critical for the first, especially the middle part of your life. Mm-hmm. We're all very critical of ourselves, and it's nice to come to this point where you can look back and think, it's all been awesome.
Yeah. To me, it just reminds me of being in a haze, sort of. We'll spend all our lives finding ourselves, but just sort of finding a happy plateau. Even acknowledging that the happiness is the plateau to search out is a good first step. And I don't think when I listened to that album, I don't think I'd even picked the happy plateau as the place I want to end up to be, and stuff like that. So yeah, very much in a haze. All those traditional things that you think about life, stuff like that, I never considered stuff like that. But yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question, because I know we've spoken on this before, but it always interests me to creators. Are you looking for a perfect ideal? Like every song, are you saying, I'm gonna make this one perfect, and then you do it and you go, I like it, but it's not quite there. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, are we always searching for perfection as creators? Like, have you done a song, and don't feel embarrassed to say yes or no, have you done a song where you went, it's good, it's perfect? Like, I don't think you can get that any better. I mean, is there such a thing?
Well, I think I'm getting to that point where I can recognize where I've done all I can, and I've got to a lyrical or emotional state on each song that it feels good in my gut. Learning how to draw the last 3 years and stuff like that has been an important part about learning that it just feels good to me, and I'm going to move on and stuff like that. But I don't think I ever look for the perfect song. I think it's each song is just part of the bigger puzzle about where I'm out. So even though I think I get very close on a song, I think I hit it very close, I know I have to go on to the next one. I know.
And some songs, like every song is up down. Like you know, at the time, and it's interesting as creators. I know these guys. Whatever you're working on now is your best thing, considering to you.
For sure.
But as you look back and you see like the peaks and valleys, do you recognize those songs that, you know, this is just an experiment, you know?
Well, yeah, some of them I can hear. That Suki was just very rote. It was just wanting to put some horns on a song that went like that. Like I can hear that for sure.
And I was telling you last time.
Am I answering? Did I answer the question?
Yeah. And it's funny because this also highlights something that I hear very often in bands, creators, and all, is that Suki for me is one of the best ever period piece songs. Like I said, it's on every playlist I have on every device that I have.
Yeah.
And you went, Suki, yeah, it's kind of a throwaway song.
Yeah.
You know, but the same thing with the Hooblers situation. We were doing a video back in the days when videos cost many, many thousands of dollars. And we had picked a song that was currently like one that was on the radio. We thought, this is the song we want to do. The video company heard the CD and said, well, I'll tell you what, if you decide to do song 4 instead of song 2, we'll do it for free. They loved that song so much, and we said, nope, that's the song we want over there. So we ended up paying for it. We never released the video, but it's funny because the song they had picked, that's one we just play live because people like to dance to it. Throwaway. But they said, you're crazy. Now when I hear that album years later, I hear that song, I go, they were right. They were probably right in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's important that you want to do what you think you want to. I was watching some YouTube stuff on Van Halen, and they were talking about some of the earlier albums that they did. What was the one with the baby on the cover? But they were talking. So
Children First. I don't know. I'm not a Van Halen
But they're talking.
guy.
Yeah, but it's interesting talking about the band and their like evolution, and Eddie Van Halen talking about that their first few hits were covers. And they weren't digging covers necessarily, especially Eddie. Eddie sort of had the fire to like musically go in sort of a more Van Halen direction, I guess. But it's interesting them sort of going, the record company, the pressure about that, the record company, you know, doing something that the band really sort of wasn't into and stuff like that. Sort of those, it's interesting.
Dancing on the streets, same
yeah,
thing.
Yeah. Well, that was the song, and they were talking about Eddie sort of getting into these synth things, and then I guess it sort of extrapolated into the song Jump or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was sort of his vision, but it was getting closer to where he knew he had to go and stuff like that. But you hear the stuff about the manager saying, "Whoa, you got to do the." Who's that? Ted Templeton was their.
Yeah, and Don Landee was your engineer.
Yeah, so he said if you do a hit song, if you cover a hit song, you're already halfway there because it's a hit song. So so it was just sort of So
I've always subscribed to that point of view. I mean,
right. So if that record company said to your band, the Hooblers, and so say, but I can guarantee you money if you would choose the song that you guys don't want to choose. Yeah. Would you guys? So that would be more.
But it's what they offered. We ended up paying. I don't know. Like I know that the bill was going to be like $30,000. We had to film it. Like we shot it on film, 16 mil. We had to get it processed. We had to get it edited. Like the whole rigmarole. It was expensive, and so we shot it. And I don't think we ever got the film processed because it was too much money. So by them offering to have it finished, you know, basically on their dime, they believed in the song so much. I guess we didn't take the money offer because that would have saved us a lot of money and given us product, and who knows.
But so are you happy with your decision still back then as an artist? You guys
only because I've never seen the footage from our video shoot. We shot in a big bar. Remember Grand Central?
Yeah.
I think we had that locked out for at least a day. And we shot it all there. We had a bunch of people in there, you know,
that's a shame.
Live.
That's a shame.
Yeah, you go, I bet you that footage is out there somewhere. Someone's probably thrown it in the garbage.
That's too bad. What year would that have been?
96, 96, 97?
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
The golden age of grunge. So, let's get back to our story here. This is a song... What the hell is it?
I don't know.
3.
I don't even know what it is.
We listened to The Alien, the Rabbit, the Monkey. We listened to the Chocolate Song. We listened to Suki.
Yeah.
This one, I believe, is My Deep Sleep or...
I don't know.
Something
is it?
like that. Why don't we just let her go.
My Deep Sleep.
Here we go, folks.
I'm so sick and tired of my wicked luck. I've got all the money that I need. I should be grateful for what fame has given me. I've converted the perverted animals. Everybody wants to be like me. I should be thankful. Make the world go away. Don't cry, love. I'll be number one with the bullet. I'm not qualified, but why did I apply? I'm the coward people lionize. Well, I'm not suicidal. I just like my deep sleep. A shot for the
Cool. Wow.
Go.
Uh-oh, not that song.
What was that called?
So that's My Deep Sleep. So I remember doing, I wrote that downstairs in the basement of my mom's house in the studio that I had. So that was a few years old. So that song is during the time Kurt Cobain committed suicide.
Yes, once I started reading these words, I remember you relating that to me. And
I'll be number one with a bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's some really great lines there. Like that, I know we both like, I'm the coward people lionize.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
not qualified, but why did I apply? I mean, like you, I'm rediscovering words that I haven't read for so long. And because you're such a weird deliverer of lyrics, you can't figure some of them out unless you read them and you go, oh, okay.
Seem to be questioning the morality of taking one's life. I certainly felt that again.
I still feel this way about, people that decide to do that. I say, look, if you're tired of being a superstar, stop releasing product. I guarantee you the world will forget pretty quick.
So the guy recently for me was Anthony Bourdain. I was watching. Have you seen his videos and stuff like that?
I watched the show for a bit.
So he's got a
he was pretty edgy.
He's got a travel cook show and stuff like that. So I was watching his latest one. I guess it was on Netflix, and was so I was just sort of in the middle of it, and he had committed suicide. And I remember watching some of his shows, which were just sort of recent to his suicide, and. He was talking about the love of for his daughter that he had. His daughter, I think, was still a teenager then and stuff like that. And he was going around the world eating at these posh restaurants and living in 5-star hotels.
He struggled with a lot of addiction and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just sort of setting up the context of it. Mental health. I don't live inside people's brains and stuff like that, but I found myself personally after he committed suicide, I could not go and watch his show anymore. there was a certain part of me that was just sort of pissed off with him that he would do that to. I knew how much he loved his daughter, and just for everything that he had. Of course, it put into even a greater question that somebody would take his life for having all that sort of material wealth, all that wealth in one's life, and still one is so unhappy that one wants to take it. And
but I do understand that you don't make sense of depression and that kind of stuff. It affects so many people, and I know I'm like you. I'm always stupid happy, like.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine going there.
I know, but you have to understand that's the thing, right? Is that people who are there say you don't know, it doesn't matter, fame, money, it doesn't make it any better.
Yeah, but it was important to put that into context because despite all that, you still managed to take your own life and stuff like that, and yet I think
how miserable must you be? Really?
Yeah, and I took so I thought about all those things in my head, but I still took it a bit personally. It still pissed me off that he would fucking do that because I enjoyed his shows and he seemed like such a passionate guy and stuff like that. So I see that in those lyrics too.
But that's it is that knife edge of artistry. Whether like he is, which is a purveyor of life. All great things and travel and exotic locations, weird situations, whether it's a musician, creators, do you have to live on a knife edge to create decent stuff? I don't know.
So it would almost appall me to be in their position, to almost have it all and still be unhappy. And then I would almost think there would be such a desolation to one's own sort of self and soul that those things that you maybe have thought would give you happiness and strive for, and still they don't, and still there's an extreme emptiness, and I can see how that can spiral. Incredible dynamic though. So musically though, I love the Johnny
Frigo.
The Johnny Frigo. So I love the fact that he takes one of the verses and he just plays the melody on his thing. And to me, that's like early Blake Edwards films, Peter Sellers films, just that sort of French provincial thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, what I like is that it's an accordion. There's not a lot of accordion on rock albums.
Yeah, it seemed very natural to me and just very wonderful. I know I had written this song on, I used to have in my studio a little pump organ, electric pump organ. So it had some neighbor down the street had it. I'm sure they played just church stuff on it. So I remember writing it on that. So it had that sort of organ-y sound and stuff like that. Very sort of Byronic instrumental section.
D minor.
You can hear the sort of rat bit, which is the saddest key of all.
It's sad, so sad.
It is so
because
sad.
I remember
even
during Bite Down Hard, you were playing that D minor riff.
Sure,
on the acoustic guitar.
Can't get enough of it.
Endlessly.
Yeah, two psychotic lengths. The Tiger King, musical Tiger King. So you can hear that stuff. So Ollie plays electric guitar. John James.
Which is weird. I didn't know that because I always think of Oliver as really hard, and this is a very delicate song in places.
And there's two bass players on here.
It seems to be you've done that a lot.
What's going on with this? What's going on with that? So
and Doghouse bass. Is that like a sound? Like is he? I don't know.
Might have been. So it probably John would, or one of the bass players comes in and. Most of it works out, and then somebody else comes in and finishes. I don't know.
John plays the solo fretless. Well, that would be the guitar you have now of John's, where he yanked the frets out of his standard bass.
Right. So and John looks like he played. John Dewar looks like he played guitar. Bob played some
rat
verses.
piano. There's Duncan Fotma again. Fotma. I'm sorry, Duncan. I keep mispronouncing your name.
So rat piano would be I don't know what is that backwards for something? Is that Hubler's backwards? Sorry. Yeah.
Well, okay. But you played the harpsichord?
No. For sure the harpsichord is that's off the JV thing. I can hear that.
Yeah.
But the rat piano is they had a grand piano and they had it mic'd up. They had the top off, and that's playing the strings inside the piano, going up
Are
and down.
you doubling your harp C part?
I don't know if I'm doubling it, but the rat piano is, you can hear it. It sounds like a little rat thing.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so the mic was up. It was just sort of the tape was up, and it just ran in and just quickly did that because it was available at the time. So that's where that comes from.
Well, that's interesting. Like I said, when I asked John, when I got to hear it after all the years, when I was asking what instrumentation, he was saying, whatever you hear, it's played. I would expect that there's probably some MIDI stuff in there, but
Oh yeah, a lot off the JV was my big go-to and stuff like that.
But you can hear, like, what I love, like you said about the accordion break in there. I love hearing the little pads on the holes, the air holes. I love
yeah.
that stuff.
It reminds me of the way they used to mic up Stan Getz used to play the tenor sax stuff. And they'd put a mic up near his
You hear the wind?
reed. Yeah, you can hear his mouth just sort of crack. Yeah. I love that live stuff. Yeah, so that is a song I can imagine John mixing one night. And John would be the type of guy, and I think I've told you this before, and just this sort of sound and stuff. So he would be in control room A of the studio. He'd have the lights all down. He'd have some candles going, yeah, you'd have some incense going, and it would be a real sort of production number and stuff like that. And yeah, these live instruments do sort of give it that feel. Again, I love the melody. I like the melody of how the accordion just sort of follows this sort of provincials type of thing. It goes up and down sort of me. Sounds nice.
Interesting, because there's another artist that came out of the studio there that, again, I really love, Scott Patterson, a good friend of ours. And your line, "I'll be number one with a bullet." He's got a song, "Number One with a Bullet."
Yeah, I don't.
Genius.
Yes, Scott is a genius songwriter. He was a piano player. John worked on a couple of his albums. Scott would be the piano player at the Chateau Laurier at Zoe's.
Scott is like, he could play 500 songs on the piano.
Yeah, he's Mr.
Yeah,
Shtick.
it's great.
Super. He's another freak, Scott, and stuff like that. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we're going to do a little series on Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Great guy. Great guy. He used to do stuff for radio. Anyways, should we take a break and go on to the next song? Or something
Sounds
like that?
good. Okay, next song.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed listening to that.
Well, this camera seems to be working, even though it's a step down from the last one. But hey, you know what? Onward and upward.
Hug me a little, hug me dear, hug me till the morning sun comes clear. Whisper sweet nothing's nice, make me feel so right.
Yeah, it's nice in these times that you can share phlegm. Where's the dog?
Hey, Jack. Jackie.
You hear some clicking. That's the dog walking around this set. Are you going to stay here, buddy? Or are you leaving? Anyways, welcome
Next
to part
one.
2. We just listened to My Deep Sleep, which was a crazy song with lots of
What's
Johnny
the next
Frigo.
one? What is the next one there? Stevie.
Well, as
We have another
usual,
song.
as usual,
We have
I'm
another
really
song.
bad at the names of the songs. But you want to just listen to it and we'll discuss
Sure,
after?
let's go.
Rise, winter is melting, slipping and sliding, summer love. Cheers, amber nectar, cooking her Epicurean delights. Nothing like it concentrates the mind. Eyes roll into the back of a pretty little head. She's jumping Jupiter. She's thermonuclear. Hot sun. Fun. Round by the carousel. The
Wow. Holy conniption.
Pretty Little Head. That's
Pretty Little Head. So, yeah, one of my favorite songs I remember doing on this album. I almost am considering redoing it in my studio these days, just because there's a few things I think I could do better. So,
whoa. Like, give me the first impression. Like, the first thing you thought, I'd do that different. What's the first thing?
I think I would make it a lot more concise.
Like length?
I would take the pianos out, and I would. I thought about playing it just on a ukulele or something like that. It's kind of an old time tune. So I wrote this song on piano. So I always remember it. Like me, for about 3 months, I was constantly on this one song, and it's just basically a couple chords with sort of some running bass lines. So you just keep moving the bass off a chord and stuff like that. So I always remember doing it. So it's a very sort of Penny Lane, sort of Beatlesque, sort of thump, you know, that.
Yeah,
sort of
I call it clank, clank.
Yeah, your mother should know, all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, because I love that. I love how the bass sort of moves down off a chord and stuff like that. I love sort of the musicality of it. I love a lot of the lyrics. If I were to do it again, I would sort of take sort of that sort of... to me, and you've mentioned it, the people who have heard the song, it's sort of, and they say it in sort of a negative way, that it sounds like the Beatles, and it's supposed to be like a negative thing. But, which I agree, it is very sort of Beatlesque, so I almost think it's such a good song, and nobody's heard it. It'd be such a neat way to sort of redo it, maybe on a ukulele or a guitar, and play it sort of like a 20s sort of moving up and down the guitar like those guys used to play and stuff like that. That's sort of a side issue. So lyrically, I always remember. So it's just sort of like a sex song, like a love song and stuff like that. I mean, the chorus is about an orgasm basically, but I always think it's one of my lyrically. And nothing like it concentrates the mind as her eyes roll into the back of her pretty little head. I mean, is such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful line. It's that thing called confirmation bliss. It's the bliss point. It's the point where you add so much sugar to your coffee that you just get that perfect amount. And if you add too much sugar, it goes over, and then you ruin your coffee. You put too much sugar in and stuff. So manufacturers call it the bliss point. That perfect sort of point
the
that you get.
Point.
Yeah. So so that's what the song is, and I always remember singing, and I love as her eyes roll into the back of her pretty little head. I mean,
it's an awesome line.
It just makes me just smile every time I hear it and say it. I mean, who doesn't get a thrill when that happens in front of you? Yeah, it's a wonderful time to be a human being, I guess. So
and this is where you and I will always have our loggerhead jams in. You will always take a song you've produced. Well, I can't say you always. Sorry. You will take a song you've previously produced that I have accepted into my tapestry of what I accept in my life, and it has a place. And then you will dick with it, and you go, "This is better." And I go, "I don't know if it is." Now, what I'd love to do is, like with movies that I love, songs that I love, I say, "I wish I could hear it again for the first time." You know.
So. I agree with you. I can wreck the stuff that I've already. So as artists going back and redoing paintings and stuff like that, I've heard of artists that will go back 30 years and start adding colors to a painting and stuff like that.
Oh, the actual painting.
Yeah. So you have a different sort of art feel, but yeah, they'll actually take the painting and
someone needs to take that art away from you.
Oh no. It's true, but your context changes, right? You're older, you see things differently. There are things that you want to change in a painting. So I don't know whether this is.
As a fan, we go, great. So do another one.
So I don't know whether this is a correct sort of trade-off as far as sort of the loggerhead argument. But John Lennon, before he died, he wanted to redo Strawberry Fields. Now, between you and me, Strawberry Fields, the Beatles version, is like a bliss point. Like it's just beautiful. It's everything that you want in a Beatles song. But 10 years later, John said, I think they put too much stuff on it. I think I could do a better version. And
Well, I
that's
can
when he
see,
was with
like you, like them, like saying less reverbs.
Sure, getting to the essence of the song more.
But when you take instruments away or...
Pulling stuff out and stuff like that. Getting the essence, sort of the artist here, all I hear is a lot of excess and stuff like that. In one way I hear just excess. Again, it goes with that sort of negative trait that I always hear on my stuff, too much bother.
Excess is what fans listen to their favorite artists for, to go,
sure,
take me to that place and just let me roll with it for 5 minutes.
Sure. So, fair enough. So I listened to that and there's it sounds wonderful to listen to, but I also listened to that out. And that out with the string section, so that was a lot of JV 1080 with the sound module. And,
I was wondering because of that at the end. I was going. I thought Iwan did a lot of the stuff. It's a great sounding piece, but there's some of the movements that I went, that doesn't sound human.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So it's trying to get it close. So I always thought so. Wonderful drumming on this.
I wanted to say, Bob might be my favorite drummer because, like Ringo, Bob is not about look at me drumming. Bob is about what does the song need at this particular point. That chorus is a Ringo perfection.
Dum, dum, pss, He knew exactly what to do. It's wonderful. Also, the steel guitar by Al Bragg.
The pedal steel.
The pedal steel guitar.
Oh, it's
on the out is wonderful.
It's dreamy.
It's a very sort of dreamy thing, and it's such a interesting instrument to put against that sort of more sort of traditional pop, the pianos and stuff like that. But it's wonderful to listen to. So I always remember doing this song, and I always thought this would be just. If I were to play this live, this would always be fun to do, like with the NAC orchestra, just sort of having that big string section in the back, just sort of clomping along. Because I'd written, I know that there's a thing that's the ending or the out maybe was twice as long as the version you hear now, because it was just so fun, just clomping along and adding all these different pieces. I always enjoyed that Beatle thing at the end of All You Need Is Love, where George Martin in particular was putting all those different musical pastiches against, like he had Old Lang Syne on the out of All You Need Is Love. He had all those sort of musical pastiches. Not like he's the first guy to sort of not
she loves you.
Not that it matters. Yeah. And so they were putting all these sort of musical pastiches on, and I remember just sort of tripping on all these different things on the end, and just
you do
indulging.
Experiment with a lot of sound effects in the album, and little what do I call little ambient audio pieces, which are really cool. It
was sort of cool at the time, and certainly when we were doing this, I'm sure we were doing this really loud, so the whole studio was just full of just musical sounds and stuff like that. And sort of that out, you can do anything you want on those outs. So I'm sure I indulged myself way too long on this and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a wonderful song. I think anybody that played on it always told me that they enjoyed playing on this song.
Oh, yeah.
Can you please put up the do you have the
lyrics?
The lyrics and who played on it?
There you go.
Yeah, that for sure was John. John played bass on it. So yeah, that was John
Jaco
Dewar.
Bonaducci. It's Danny Bonaduce and Jaco stories were stuck together.
So claps. Johnny
Frigo's accordion again, although I don't remember it must have been mixed down there.
Bob Bangs, Al Bragg, the jive wires. So there's a little horn section at the very end of the song that we
They're
put
so
a
good.
little tag and stuff like that.
The recording of them it's so well done, and their tuning is so nice.
Yeah. So this is kind of sort of reminds me of sort of the song. I probably wrote this on a day like this, where it was very sort of gray, and you're hoping the sun starts shining through. You need some vitamin D and stuff like that.
Winter is melting right now.
So I can think of a couple good lines on this. She's amber and nectar cooking her Epicurean delights, and nothing like it concentrates the mind as her eyes roll into the back of her pretty little head. She's
Did you
jumping
have the music
Jupiter.
or the lyrics done first?
She's
Or were they
thermonuclear.
concurrent?
Well, I think that chorus and the piano part came together just sort of at a spot in a moment, and then everything else. But yeah, I played that constantly. Well, you're around me when I do stuff, so I played that constantly for like a year.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I think of the chorus bit, to me, the hook is driven by the drums.
Mm-hmm.
When it's the off hits. And so when you're writing this, you're writing it typically as a writer on the ones, strumming through the chords. So I'm trying to remember in my mind you playing these chords, and I think this came along after.
So on the bass part in the chorus too, it's got that, and it sounds like it just, doom, ba-dum, dum, dum, ba-dum, dum, dum. So that's the Pet Sounds bass thing that we tried. We tried that, who's the girl, Carol Kay? She played the bass. Yeah, and so she would double her bass parts, and I forget how we did it. Obviously I found out how she did it, and I tried to double it. So I think it's a stand-up bass. Would it be a sound, to get the pluck sound and stuff like that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we were constantly trying to get that very Pet Soundy chorus sound on the bass or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But I can hear John, especially on the back end, I can hear some bass edits, but he sounds like $1 million on the out. Nice bass movement and stuff like that. Yeah, it was wonderful. What a great little tune.
I was kind of happy as well to see you didn't have to throw that wrench into it about 2/3 of the way through. Like
what a surprise,
You let this song happen, which was nice.
What a surprise, eh? Yeah.
I like all your little inventions, but this song, I think it was nice to leave it be and let it go.
Let it be.
Let it be.
Cool. It was. I really have no.
And in the
sounds fun.
The fan side of this thing, this song is definitely right up there with any of your output. It captured a fun kind of thing that we all had stuck in us somewhere. That clank Beatlish. Yeah.
So just a quick thing, just toward the end. So this song, so as I said, so when people hear my stuff, now obviously I've sort of given away the key. Yeah, I love the Beatles and stuff like that. But so when people ask you to describe it, or they'll listen to a song like that, you're right. They will say it does sound like the Beatles, but sort of in that, and I won't even say positive or negative, but it's not a positive. There's not a positive vibe. It sounds like it's sort of a difficult thing for me to sort of run with those things, because all rock and roll sort of is like a cake. It's sort of, drums, bass, Hammond B3, a Telecaster. So there's always sort of these indigenous parts to sort of rock and roll and stuff. But that was a song that when we finished the album, there was a radio contest that summer. So I guess we finished in the spring or whatever like that. And so part of the radio contest was that they picked the best 10 songs, and then you'd have to go and do this band showdown and stuff like that. And I remember John sort of throwing that song in, and I guess they picked it. And of course I had no band or anything like that. And so they went ahead with their night that they were going to have these, because it was over a few nights. But I was mocked relentlessly on the radio for not showing up and doing any sort of band thing or whatever. But a song like that, like I remember sort of, and this is something we'll end up talking with more. I remember finishing this album off, and I just sort of remember being completely, utterly overwhelmed by the task of thinking about putting a band together and making sense of all this to a band and stuff like that. And just to even further the conversation, I remember going to the very extreme to this conversation, and I ended up playing a small concert at Zayfob Beeblebrox. You got me the gig And I actually ended up playing songs from this album, but just by myself on acoustic guitar. Remember, I had a little Goldfish, and I did about 9 songs. I think about 7 of them were from the album, stuff like that. And I think I remember doing Pretty Little Head and stuff like that. Just sort of
like, I know how you concern yourself so much with the live gig and how much you just don't want to do it. But I look at some of these players, and I think they were all willing. They probably all would have been willing to go and do about a handful of gigs to produce. I'd love to see this album done in its entirety. And there's a few players on here, obviously, that could replicate it pretty well.
Sure, but but there were other sort of issues and stuff like that. Just sort of me doing a whole hour by myself. I mean, like again, we get into the whole sort of too much Byron conversation. But anyways, specifically that song.
Good thing Elton John didn't feel like that.
Yeah, I wish I sort of had some of that to get up and do that. But yeah.
But definitely a really, really great song. Interpreted by great musicians, and it's just a wonderful thing to hear it. I mean, it's timeless. That's the one thing I love about your music, and I'm not saying timeless in the sense of how great it is, but it doesn't. I mean, other than being a slight reference to period pieces, they stand that test of time. When you have good players that's recorded well, edited well, sung well, great lyrics, neat hooks, it's going to stand up, and it doesn't sound dated to me.
I enjoyed listening to it, and I think the chorus is worth $1 million to me. I take that to my grave any day. I love that line.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so there you go, episode 13, glitches and all, but a couple of great songs. And I think we're probably getting close to the halfway point, and it starts to get pretty interesting. Well, it's always been interesting, but it gets even a little more left turnish soon.
I look forward to it. I have no idea what's next, so don't spoil the party for me.
All right, so we're still under coronavirus lockdown.
Next week.
And we're going to see you next week.